we're still have some snow over here. I've had nothing but technical problems this week, so been trying to deal with all that. You know me, I got to have some kind of
I'm gonna
drama
get you a
going on.
T-shirt. Yeah, I'm gonna get you a T-shirt. Technical problems. That's gonna be a shirt for you. Technical problems
Yeah,
or reset router. Reset the router. I got a question for you. I got a good question for you tonight. If I paid you $500, would you sit with a dead body overnight?
absolutely, no problem. Cemetery, morgue, $500 is $500. I'm in. That's cash money. I don't scare that easy. It
Well,
would be
somebody who I
it would
know.
be weird, but I would do it. I would do it. It would be kind. I could see how it get kind of like unsettling, but $500. I don't know, man. I'm in.
$500 is $500. And listen, I know somebody that causes the dead bodies because he's a heartbreaker. Chris, the creature Zissy. What's up, Chris? How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. There are a lot of corpses I'd rather spend time with than a lot of the living people I know. So I would absolutely do it for 500 and sometimes even $50.
Well, listen, we're gonna plan your vigil soon, man. I'm telling you what, we're gonna get you a nice cover for your body there. And anyway, HorrO's got somebody that would sit vigil for you, and that's Dexter. What's up, HorrO? How you guys doing over there?
Hey, we're doing good here, and I feel like I should get the $500 automatically because I'm with this guy all the time. I mean, look at him there, popping in and out. I don't know what he's doing tonight. He's doing his skeleton ghost thing, and I don't know. I think we already started the visual. I don't know.
He's the Mizik. He's the Mizik, the demon that we're going to be talking about tonight. So listen, everybody, I'm so excited to talk about the film that we're going to get into, and we're going to do the interview later on. We're talking about The Vigil. We're going to have director and producer Keith Thomas on. If you watch the YouTube channel, you just got done listening to that. What a treat, that guy, man. What was such a great film. And I'm so desensitized to horror movies now, right? And we watch so many of them, and a lot of times I laugh in a good way when I'm watching scary movies. This one I was like scared, man, and I'm watching it and in the pure dark, and that's the way to do it. You guys got to watch this film in the pure dark. Make sure you have, if you're not watching it in the theater, which I think I want to watch in the theater. I might have to ask a friend to come with me to watch it in the theater, and put your headphones on if you're streaming it and watch it in the dark because this movie was awesome. And I'm not just trying to butter it up because it's on the show. It's on our show. It's what a way to kick off 2021 with a great film, and I can't wait for everybody to see it. It's an IFC midnight film, so you know it's going to be good. It's got a great cast. It's very, very creepy. And Chris, we'll talk about that later on tonight towards the end of the show. We got our normal get-ups, and I'm going to kick it right off because I'm looking at this beer, and I had to pick a right beer for the show and the movie. And this one's called Devil's Reach. This is Cape May Devil's Reach. This is a high percentage alcohol beer, 8.6% alcohol, so I may be a little fuzzy. I'm starting to feel better from my little incident, and so hopefully the meds and the beers mix together, and I get a little loopy later on towards the show. But anyway, Devil's Reach, Cape May Brewing Company. Let's see how this bad boy tastes. That is a good beer. Oh, that's dangerous. That's a dangerous beer because it's low percentage alcohol. And I can just see myself drinking like 6 of those right away, then being really, really fuzzy. So I'm going to go through the week on the horror movie flashback. Lots of good movies since last time we spoke to everybody. But first and foremost, I want to just say a remembrance to Donald Pleasance. We know him from the Halloween movies. He February 2nd, 1995, he had passed away. So we all know who Donald Pleasance is. Anyway, going through the movies, we spoke about this on one of HorrO's remakes. This was When a Stranger Calls. It was released on February 3rd in 2006. Also, another movie that has been brought up a few times on our show, In the Mouth of Madness. That was also released February 3rd, 1995. Videodrome, that was just spoken about a second ago on our interview. That was released February 4th, 1983. Also, another remembrance who passed or who was a birthday. Sorry, George Romero, February 4th, 1940. What an amazing horror icon! I mean, Jesus. Not literally Jesus, but you know. The Serpent and the Rainbow was released February 5th, 1988. I love that movie. That movie scared the crap out of me, man. That's like, it kind of has to do with the vigil, what we're talking about tonight. This is more like voodoo and in that world. And that's a great movie. If they did this movie right, I'd love to see a remake of this movie, like a modernized one, but it'd have to be really done well. I don't want any cheesy crap. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, February 5th, 1956. The Fog, February 8th, 1980. So lots of great movies. Muse, did anything jump out at you in that list there? I know that we talk a lot about these movies. Anything jumping out at you?
Well, In the Mouth of Madness is absolutely stellar. It's one of my favorite John Carpenter films. And when we talk a lot about Halloween, and my favorite all time is Halloween 2 for horror movies, but I'd say my favorite actual Carpenter movie is actually In the Mouth of Madness. And it's just I remember watching this film with a friend of mine that had never seen it, and it just he just was so mind fucked by this movie. He was like, what is going on? He loved it, but he was like, of course you would ask me to, watch some crazy stuff like this, but he loved it. He's a big Carpenter fan as well, but we still talk about it till this day. So just such a good one. And In the Fog is also another one of my favorites. I was not aware. And of course, happy birthday, George Romero. We miss you. Just such an icon in horror. Very missed.
Well, we're going to get right into the Sinister Six with Muse here. So go ahead and take it away, lady.
Okay. So I thought that we're kind of like talking about kind of like a religious horror movie here. And I thought this would be an interesting time to give you some of my favorite religious horror films that you may or may not have missed. And so I'm going to start right off with the first film, and that is Red State. Now, this was an interesting film because it was directed by Kevin Smith, and we know him as, Silent Bob, but he also directed some pretty damn good horror movies, and this is one of them. And I think this is one of those that folks may or may not have seen. I don't see a ton of this talked about on social media, and that is completely and totally unfortunate because you are absolutely missing out. So let me break this down for you really, really quick in case you're not familiar with it, or maybe you have forgotten what it's about. But it centers on three, I guess you could say, very frisky teenagers, Travis, Jared, and Billy Ray. And they really can't believe their luck when they meet this woman online who says she wants to hook up with all three of them at once. So this is already starting out really crazy. But yeah, just like horror movies, everything is not what it seems. And the promise of, the hookup is a trap. And the boys find themselves in the hands of a character named Aben Cooper, and he's played brilliantly by the late Michael Parks, who we also miss dearly, just a fantastic actor. And he plays this really insane preacher who's just, oh my gosh, he spews so much hatred. I mean, this guy is absolutely out of his mind, totally bonkers in this movie. And Cooper, Bradley or Michael Parks' character means to kill these young men for their sins. And this prompts a desperate bid for their escape. This movie gets off the rails super quick. Things just go up to, the volume gets turned up to 11. There's shootouts. Things just get really out of hand. So I would recommend this one. It's kind of like more kind of like on like, maybe not supernatural, but more of kind of like a cult religious horror. But I would say this is definitely a must see, especially because Michael Parks' performance in this is just absolutely brilliant. And he plays crazy so well. He's just such a great actor no matter what he's doing. And we really miss him. So definitely Red State for the first one. I would say definitely check that out. The second movie is one I'd seen recently. And I know Omar had told me, see the 2008 version of Martyrs. I did not see the remake. I stayed away from it for better or worse, but I've heard that the 2008 Martyrs is definitely the one to see. And this is definitely a hard watch. And, again, I think this is more along the lines of a belief that is pretty insane. And there's definitely a belief system here, but maybe not, I guess you could say, in the traditional sense. Martyrs is absolutely brutal to watch, but a brilliant film. But one of those films I don't know if I would watch again because it was just so there was some really tough parts there. But it was just so well done. I guess I heard somebody say once that, about another brilliant film they had seen. They said that is the most fantastic film I would probably only watch once. Generally when you watch a film you really like, you're going to see it more than once. But I don't know. I could definitely say I would watch it maybe with somebody that hadn't seen it just to see the reaction. I really am interested in people's feedback on movies. But so just to refresh you guys in this one, it centers on two young women who were both victims of abuse as children, and they embark on a bloody quest for revenge, only to find themselves plunged into a living hell of depravity. So that's exactly that is probably the shortest synopsis I've ever seen of this film, because there's so much going on and there's so much that you're not aware of when the movie is actually going on, and you are definitely not ready. But it was so good. It was brilliant. And I know that there's a lot to talk about this one. I know there's folks out there that choose to skip this one, but I had to see it. I'd heard way too much about it, and I'm glad I did. It was a brilliant film, but definitely difficult. It was a hard watch, but the actresses in this one were fantastic, phenomenal. The whole thing was just great. The third movie is The Black Coat's Daughter. And I think this is still screaming. You might be screaming after seeing some of these movies, but they're great. The third movie is The Black Coat's Daughter, and I believe it is still streaming on Netflix. I'd actually watched this one, just hearing a very little bit about it, and it was really excellent. A little bit more of a slow burn, but it really has a great story. And if you are into kind of like more of a tense buildup, this is definitely up your alley. It takes place during the dead of winter, and it centers on it starts out with a troubled young woman played by Emma Roberts. Most of you will be familiar with her. She embarks on this, I guess you could say, mysterious journey to an isolated prep school where two stranded students face a sinister threat from an unseen evil force. And things get pretty insane. It's definitely more of a supernatural yeah, I would, some of these are a little bit, I guess you could say, a little loosely called, maybe more on the terms of a religious horror, maybe not. Maybe I'm not picking the traditional religious horror genre films that most of you are familiar with, but I wanted to pick some that maybe you may have missed, kind of a little bit more off the radar. And Black Coat's Daughter, I see a little bit about that, but I haven't seen a whole lot of talk about this one. I think this one needs a lot more love. The performances are great. Again, the buildup is fantastic. Definitely check that one out. And I did see it is streaming on Netflix. So I would definitely check that out. The fourth movie is Fallen. And I'd say most of us have seen this one, but if you have not, I don't know what you're doing. You got to see this one. So it's just the basic. It stars Denzel Washington, John Goodman, Elias Koteas, who is also in The Prophecy. And in this one, though, Elias Koteas plays a serial killer. And so after witnessing the execution of that serial killer named Edgar Reese, played by Elias Koteas, whom he arrested, police officer John Hobbs, played by Denzel Washington, and his partner Jonesy, played by John Goodman, are soon investigating another murderer whose mode of operation is eerily similar to Reese's. In the course of the investigation, Hobbs meets theology professor Greta Milano, who introduces him to the world of the occult and the possibility that an evil spirit is behind the killings. Definitely an excellent movie. I did not see the ending coming. And I'm really interested for those out there that have not seen this one. I'd love to hear your feedback on that one. It's an excellent movie. I think it's one of the more underappreciated Denzel Washington movies as well. John Goodman gives an excellent supporting performance in this one. You're definitely wondering what's going on until the very end. It definitely leaves you kind of like dangling there at points. And I loved it. It was excellent. My fifth movie, of course, is, and there was going to be Bill Paxton on the list again, Frailty. This is definitely on the lines of a supernatural religious genre horror. And of course, it centers on a widowed blue collar father. He's widowed.
Can I ask you a question real quick? Just because I've been always wondered this about Frailty, and I haven't seen it yet. But on the particular slide that I picked here, because it's like the most basic, I think that's the cover of the DVD or VHS. Right. But that's not
that's
Bill Paxton.
No, that's
okay. That's what I thought. Okay. My bad. I didn't mean to break your stride there, woman.
Oh, that's okay. That threw me too before I'd seen the movie. I was like, wait a minute, that's McConaughey. He's in this? Because you don't see him for some of the movie. It starts out with Bill Paxton being a widowed father. He's got 2 sons, and McConaughey plays the adult version of his son. So it starts out with the boys being at a younger age, and then later on, it kind of takes you back and forth between the past and the present. It's, it centers on Paxton. He's a blue collar worker, and he has a revelation that he must destroy those revealed to him as demons. So he begins these serial killings, which they call the God's Hand Killer, across Texas. But he also has, 2 young sons, like I mentioned, the younger of whom idolizes him and believes in the cause, while his older brother is revolted, but he can't bring himself to stop his father. And of course, he probably doesn't want to leave his brother either. But 20 years later, the elder son, walks into a police station and confesses. And that's where McConaughey comes in. He's the one in the police station confessing as an adult about all these things that had happened. And again, you're left wondering the whole movie, is Paxton's character really crazy in this? Or is there really something supernatural going on there? So I loved how they kind of kept you guessing until the end. And I'm not going to ruin it because Ken has not seen it. And I know there's probably maybe others out there that have not seen it either.
Thank you.
Definitely not going to. Such a good one. You got to see that, because I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it, because Paxton is just fantastic in this, and I think he also directed as well. So it was a really, really fantastic film. And my last movie before I swing around to you guys is Constantine. And of course, if you follow comics, this is based off the Hellblazer comics. But the movie centers on, Keanu Reeves plays John Constantine. He's a suicide survivor and demon hunter who has literally been to hell and back. And he knows that when he dies, he's got a one-way ticket to Satan's realm, unless he can earn enough goodwill to climb God's stairway to heaven. And he gets involved with helping a policewoman played by Rachel Weisz, and she's investigating her identical twin's apparent suicide. Constantine becomes caught up in this, I guess you could say, supernatural plot involving both the demonic and angelic forces. So many fantastic performances here. This is another great, I cannot think of his name right now, but he portrays an excellent portrayal of Satan and the devil. I cannot think of his name, but it's on the tip of my tongue.
The Russian guy, the Russian guy. Yeah.
I cannot think of his name. And of course, everybody's name is escaping me tonight, but there's so many great performances in this one. And this is one that I think most of us have seen. If you have not, it's definitely a fun ride, and one of those films that you always kind of look back and say it's just a badass film. And I know that there's a little bit, I think there's been some dispute on this one. Maybe it's not as faithful to the comic, and some people, I believe they made a TV show as well. And some people felt the TV show was a little more faithful to the comic, but I preferred the movie. I thought it was great, but I guess it all depends on who you ask, but most people, I'd say, love this one. So I'm going to swing to Ken first and ask him, what are some of your favorites, movies in this genre that you think maybe people may have missed, or maybe they've seen it and it's just one of your favorites?
Well, I love the way you ended it, because I think Constantine is awesome. Like, I think it is such an underrated film. I think it has, from the opening scene, it's terrifying, man. It is scary. And I don't know if you remember, it's like he's performing a real exorcism, and they made it look really real for a second, like very exorcist-ish, if I may. But as far as like religious horrors go, I mean, obviously the big one is The Exorcist, and that's my number one all-time favorite scary movie. So that one, and you and I had mentioned The Prophecy offline. That is just, I love just the first one. I like the first one. I don't like the other ones, just the first one. But those two, I would probably say, I enjoyed those thoroughly. I'm trying to think if there was any other horror religious ones that maybe HorrO and Chris won't get, but I don't know. I'm going to throw it over to Chris. I know he's got something up his sleeve. He always does.
All right, Chris, what do you got?
All right. He took The Exorcist, but that's fair. That's a movie we talk about every episode, I think. 2 years after The Exorcist, or 1 or 2 years after The Exorcist. The Omen. Remember The Omen?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorites. Love that movie. Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
good.
The maid that hangs herself and goes through the window. I
Yeah.
think that was Jack Palance's daughter. I might be incorrect about that, but if you know Jack Palance, that was her daughter that went through the window.
Oh wow. Okay, that
Yeah.
is crazy because that's one of the scenes that always sticks with me.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
all for you. It's all for you, Dan.
Ah,
Yes,
yeah.
that scene. You're like, what? What's going
Oh,
on?
oh, yeah. And that's before the priest gets it with the, beheading. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Oh,
interesting, The Exorcist. As you know, William Peter Blatty and William Friedkin, it was said that they feuded all throughout it. I think they were just having passionate discussions, but there was one feud. William Peter Blatty wanted the movie to be more evangelical in nature, where William Friedkin said the story itself speaks for that. And of course, Friedkin won out. But when a few years later, William Peter Blatty had the opportunity, he wrote a book called The Ninth Configuration, also known as Twinkle, Twinkle, Killer Kane, in which he does get evangelical in nature as far as what's on the screen in the ninth configuration, the hunting imagery. If you've never seen the ninth configuration, Jason Miller, uh, uh, Ed Flanders, Scott Wilson, who many years later you remember from The Walking Dead, and a cast, an all-star cast. Nobody went to see the movie, unfortunately, but haunting images and real questions about faith, what's on the other side. And if you ever get a chance to see the ninth configuration, I think William Peter Blatty, what he wanted to do in The Exorcist, he was able to do in this movie. So I'll leave the rest for HorrO.
great choices. I agree. I keep hearing Ken talk about William Peter Blatty reading the Exorcist audiobook. I've actually read The Exorcist, but I need to go back and listen because I just like to hear the way that he kind of goes through it. It's kind of probably makes it even more chilling. It was a great book though. Okay, Omar, what do you got?
All right. Well. First of all, I always applaud when you bring up Martyrs because I love that movie,
Yes,
and
great movie.
yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen that, and I will dare to watch that again one day. I do want to watch that. I'm dying to watch that. It's been a long time. And I give you absolute props for bringing up Red State. I know that's kind of under the a hidden movie there that not too many people know of. But yeah, definitely a weird, strange, definitely Kevin Smith type movie. So I give you props for those two. I'm gonna bring up another movie that was weird for me, which was Mother with Jennifer Lawrence. That was religion up and down, and I guess more religion than I even know about. And that was just a crazy, crazy film from beginning to end, and all about religion. And I guess it only kind of makes sense if you know religion really well. At least that's what I read about it. So that's one crazy one. I'm gonna throw out a couple of newer titles here. I'm not gonna say too much about them because I don't want to ruin it. I know a lot of people haven't yet to see some of these movies. Sador, which is a movie that actually just released today. Maybe a supernatural religious theme there. The Reckoning, which is more maybe of a witch religious theme, goes back some time. Lutz, Flower of Evil. That was, I believe, an Argentinian film that recently came out that is all about religion. Very interestingly shot film. And Death of Me, which I believe is now on Netflix. If not, it's Amazon. It's on one of the two. It just recently dropped on there. That also is kind of maybe more tied in. I believe it was shot in Thailand, which is more maybe towards religion, toward their religion, but still a newer movie. So those are some newer titles for you with some religious undertones there.
Well, I tell you what, I have not heard of some of those, and I love this genre of horror. It freaks me out, and I love to be disturbed. So these films just always do that for me, and so I think that's why they're some of my favorites. But I definitely need to check those out. I liked Mother. It was weird. I will agree. I know it got a lot of hate. I don't know. A lot of people said they didn't like it. So when I went into watching it, I actually just watched it on a whim. It just happened to be on. I was really going in like thinking, okay, the sounds that a lot of people have bashed it and things like that. I liked it. I thought it was pretty decent. But I know it got a lot of hate, but I thought it was on the strange side, but
you just have to know a lot of religion
right.
to really understand it, because if you don't, yeah, I think it becomes a very like, what the hell am I watching?
Right,
What is
exactly.
going on?
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. Definitely. Well, great stuff, guys. So that's it for my Sinister Six. And I'm going to, I think, are we passing it to horror? Or am I
Uh,
coming back?
no, hold on. I want to tell you something before you we go into the promote horror rundown. I watched a movie that I haven't watched, and shame on me. I'm trying to catch up, slowly but surely here. But I watched Midsommar, right?
Oh, yes.
It's funny because I started watching it at, yeah, I didn't realize it's like a freaking 3 hour movie, and I watched it with a friend, and I loved it, man. I don't know why everybody was bad. I mean, it's like hit or miss. I thought it was fucking awesome, man. I loved the gore. It was a kind of a truer story. I have a friend that's an expert in joining cults, and we were just, that's an inside joke. They listened to the show, and I just loved it, and I had no idea where it was going, and I didn't watch The Wicker Man, but man, some of those scenes and the blood, and it was excellent. I loved it. So I couldn't wait to tell you that, Muse.
Oh my
I
God.
finally watched it.
Midsommar. Yeah, it's totally off the wall crazy. I can see why it's maybe a polarizing film, because it's definitely some definite weirdness going on there. But I loved it. I loved it for that. And it was a long one, but I didn't normally, I'm like, man, what is going on? Why is this so long? But I didn't even notice it with Midsommar. I really dug it. And I just want to say, how bad was the boyfriend in that film? I wanted to punch him in the face the whole time. I hated him. His character. I was so glad he died. I'm not even going to say.
Well, he was pretty brave at one point, just running through the woods naked. Anyway, I gotta say what's up to John Grant. John Grant, you got to watch the film, man. Check it out. It's worth it. It's a long movie, but as long as the movie was, I was tuned in the whole time. Exactly. And it was a beautifully made movie, and there's a lot of visual effects going on. And I found the face in the woods. I was so proud of myself. I don't know if you knew that. There was like a face in the woods. But yeah, definitely check it out, John. Anyway, we're going to throw it on over to HorrO and the Promote Horror Rundown with Dexter, the shitty intern.
Yeah, there he is. Props to you guys for finally catching up and seeing some of these movies. You should have made it a double hitter and watch Hereditary at the same time. Then your mind really would have been blown.
But I seen Hereditary first, though.
Oh, you saw it. Okay, you saw it.
Okay. Yeah. I liked it. I thought it.
So, quick question.
I like Midsommar better.
Okay.
Barely. I mean, I like Toni Collette's character in Hereditary. I thought she's phenomenal, but I thought the ending of Midsommar was better. I didn't like the ending so much of Hereditary. So I don't know. Two different movies, but I probably lean on Midsommar. What about you, Muse? Did you watch both of them, Chris?
Yeah. I saw both. I liked them both. I mean, I wouldn't say I preferred one or the other, but yeah, I agree. Two completely different movies. The endings. I don't know why, but I mean, this may not make sense to everybody, but I just kind of felt like, and this is not going to probably make sense to anybody but me, but that's normal. I kind of felt like the end of Hereditary had like a Rosemary's Baby feel. I don't know why. I think because of what's being revealed there. No baby involved. That's all I'll say, but it just had that vibe to it. And kind of had that almost like cult like, situation going on. But Midsommar also cult like, but just absolutely batshit crazy things going on. You're just like, yeah, this is getting freaking weird. But I liked it. I love when things get weird and uncomfortable. I love to watch people squirm in their seats. So like I said, this is one I will make my husband watch at some point, and he will just hate my guts probably for the rest of my life. But I have to see his reaction to some of this stuff. So yeah. So passing it over to HorrO and Dexter.
Yeah, I'm totally ruining my segment by doing all this. But yeah, both movies were just hit. I see the goodness in them, and I've said it before when I've reviewed both of them. I see the goodness in them. Both shot well, directed well, and everything like that. But they hit a weirdness level to me that once it passes that, I'm out. Like, I can respect the movie, but I'm out. Like, you're just not gonna get me to watch this again. I respect everybody's feelings and how everybody loves the movies and so forth and so forth. With that, if you followed Dexter along today, you might have gotten a clue of what I'm going to talk about today. And because Valentine's Day is coming up, I have no other choice but to talk about My Bloody Valentine. So yes, we have two movies here. We actually have a remake, so it gives me a chance to talk about both of them. I'm kind of saving this up for this moment here. And this is, of course, My Bloody Valentine 1981 versus My Bloody Valentine 2009. And just like with When a Stranger Calls, I watched this in kind of reverse order. I saw the 2009 version first, and then actually just today for this, especially sat down and watched the 1981 version to kind of get a grasp of what is going on here and so forth. So, it's interesting when you kind of do things backwards and you kind of see what's happening in a different light in a different way, and then you have different expectations. But I actually watched both movies today. I had seen the 3D, and I should say it's My Bloody Valentine 3D because I did actually see this in 3D. Not the version I watched today; it was not in 3D. But just to kind of see, what is going on here on both ends. And basically, if you've never seen this, and I may spoil this along the line, so if you've never seen either of these movies and don't want to be spoiled, be prepared. I may give something away here or there. But both stories basically involve a love triangle. Why not on Valentine's Day? It obviously includes Valentine's Day. A mine. We got a killer dressed in a mine outfit here with some interesting weapon here I'll talk about soon. And the story of Harry Warden is very involved in here. And he's your supposed killer, at least to start. And so speaking of starting, I guess I'll just kind of mention a few things about 1981 version first. And the first thing that I was surprised to learn about when I was looking at this is a Canadian film, actually. So I did not know that. So that's kind of interesting that we Americans went out and grabbed a remake of a Canadian film, or at least done in Canada. Yeah, much of thieves we are. And this one here, and again, you're contrasting styles here, which is very interesting. We saw it, and I saw that again with When a Stranger Calls. Is you see this one kind of start out, and it spends a lot of time with the characters. They do stop for a moment and go through the whole thing and talk about Harry and his backstory and so forth. But you are spending a lot of time with the different characters here. There's a group of miners. You see a little bit of them working, then a little bit of time when they're basically hitting on their girlfriends and so forth. And I don't know if Chris considered any of them babes. Maybe you can touch on that later. But they're spending considerable time. I want to hook up with this girl and that girl, and they're kind of going through the emotions there. And what I thought was in this one is that the love triangle isn't as obvious. They started off kind of very slow and subtle, and I really didn't think in this one was going to have such an effect. I kind of kept going back to Harry and, is it going to be him or is it going to be, somebody else? Who is going to be the killer here? Is it going to be someone different than obviously, like I said, I saw the remake, so I kind of had a clue where they were going. But, maybe in the original version, they were going to do something different. And I think the original kind of hides it better until you get, I should say, at least timing wise, until you at least get a little bit further along in the film. I think the remake kind of maybe made it kind of obvious, and again, it might be kind of obvious just because of the casting. At least I'm more familiar with the 2009 cast as opposed to the 1981 cast. So yeah, they spent a lot of time on that, and I thought here that the killer does a pretty good job. The deaths are pretty decent to say the least, and they're done obviously practically, which is pretty good. But when it comes time for the reveal, I did think that was a little weak. I wasn't blown away. Was it it kind of the way, I don't know, maybe it was the editing. She kind of knocks off his face mask there, and they're kind of having a moment there, but I don't know, it didn't happen very smoothly, and that kind of ruins the big moment there, even though you kind of had an idea of who it is by that actual point. And I did find it interesting that they did leave this one open for a sequel. So as opposed to maybe doing a sequel, they chose somewhere down the line, in which they never did, They didn't do a sequel as opposed to doing a remake. Um, so with that, we would jump into talking about the remake, 2009. And obviously, the first thing that stands out here is Jensen Ackles. I know him from Supernatural. You can know him from a few other things, but this is obviously his big, besides Supernatural, I guess his big staple in horror. I don't know that he's done many other movies as big as this. And obviously, one of Muse's favorite, Tom Atkins, is in this movie as well. And there's a couple other familiar faces. So that's the first thing that stood out for me is the familiar faces. Um, it opens and it, kind of jumping more into the killings a little quicker. Although you don't really get to see it, they kind of ruin that. You get to see a lot of the aftermath as opposed to the fun part. So it's a little bit of a mix there. I thought, as it goes on, they kind of go to the killer a little bit quicker, even though you don't know who he is. They have a completely scene that's just never in the original, where the killer is walked by. He's in a hotel, motel, whatever. He walks by a room, sees some, like kind of like Jason, sees some sex going on, doesn't really like it, and they go through a whole spiel here where he's got to kill them for whatever reason, just because he happened to be there and he saw them, and we need to see the blood and guts and so forth here. So then we get to more and more killing as this movie goes on. You see him use a pickaxe. Both of them use a pickaxe. And here we get to the big debate. And obviously this version is a lot CGI. And, we all frown on that here. But I think in this case, I'm going to give this movie a little bit of a pass. Why of the pass? Because remember, it is 3D. So in order to help with the 3D action, a lot of it is CGI. And in that case, I don't think they do a terrible job. Obviously, if you take away the 3D, it looks kind of crappy. I think there's a scene where a woman kind of gets her head sliced down the middle there with a shovel, and it's completely digital. And when you just take that as it is not very smooth looking. I mean, you just tell that is digital. I don't know why. Maybe they could have mixed that better, but or something in shooting 3D. I guess they shot. I don't know how they exactly shot this. But there are some really good scenes. There's a scene early in the movie with an eyeball. They do a good eyeball trick there. And I thought, this is probably one of the first horror 3D movies I saw. Besides Jaws 3D back then in the day. But true horror sense. And for it being in its time, I thought it was okay. And I remember, I believe I saw this in the theater, and it turned out being all right. I know, like probably the other movies that probably did a good job 3D wise are some of the late Final Destination movies. They did a fantastic job with the 3D. So yeah, if you're looking for your practical effects, you're probably going to lean towards the first one. But if you can forsake the second one for doing it in 3D and get along with that, I think they do a pretty decent job. And then obviously when you get down again to the killer here, I think, this movie, it's just mostly because of the casting. I mean, it's almost a giveaway who the killer is. I think, this one here, they spend a lot more time on it. They actually do the whole thing where, you're almost having that high tension moment where, like, wait a minute, how can he be in two places at once? But then they actually take the time to, okay, well, he was here and he did this, and they kind of do the flashback moment here and there to kind of paint the picture of, okay, we made him the killer, and we know the audience is going to be like, well, how can he be in two places? Well, we're going to show you how he's going to go and be in two places. I'm not sure I'm completely sold on all of that, but I guess, they at least did their most to try to fool us and tell us that, hey, we covered our bases here. So, I guess we'll take them at its word. And I don't think anybody really is going to sit here and go back and verify yes or no here. So I guess overall, I'm sure, some people compare these two movies, are going to look at the special effects, and obviously it's a big part of it. This is a slasher film, as obviously, and maybe not give it the leniency that I do. But I kind of like with Stranger Calls, I'm just going to have to lean towards the remake version here, just by a little bit, and just because it's a more familiar film again for me. Kind of see the style and see how it's shot and so forth. And again, I will give them a pass on some of the special effects because I know that they're doing 3D. So where some of the other ones maybe didn't turn out so great, but at least some of the 3D effects did. So you kind of give it some of them. So with that, I will throw it to you guys and see what you guys think about if you've seen either of these movies and your opinions and so forth. And I'll throw it to Muse first.
Yeah, I've seen both. I did not, I gotta say, I agree. I'm gonna have to give it a pass here. I did not see it in 3D, so I was a little bit of a disappointment for me, but I loved the cast. I was much more familiar with the cast. I'm a huge Jensen Ackles fan, have been for a long time. And I really enjoyed staring at him for an hour and a half. I was fine with that. It's enough cheesecake for me. But I love the whole cast. Tommy Atkins. You see, he's in the remake. I forgot about that. I need to actually go back and see that. So I mean, I'm a huge Tommy Atkins fan as well, and definitely more familiar with the cast. But the CGI was just like, and I think I saw the original first. I thought they were both equally pretty decent. I'm going to give the edge to the original here, I think, because it creeped me out more. I think there was just something about it that just seemed kind of like weirder, creepier. I don't know. The vibe was a little creepier, and it kind of like, it got under my skin a little bit more. Whereas I felt like the remake from 2009 was just a lot of fun. It was definitely a fun movie. I would definitely say Jensen Ackles and Tom Atkins. Who cares? Let's just watch it. I'm in. I'm like, I would have loved to see this one in 3D. I think that would have been it would have made it even more fun. I'm because like whenever I'd seen it, I'm like bloody, I'm just like 3D. I'm like, come on, my Bloody Valentine 3D. But anytime they ever show it, it's, because I didn't see it in the theater. So I saw it, when it was on one of our premium channels. So that was kind of a downer. But that I give it a pass for that in the respect of if I had seen it in 3D, I think I would probably have liked it maybe just as much as the original. But because I didn't, like you said, some of the effects come through as a little bit not quite so. They just don't work as well because it's not made for, not 3D. So yeah. But the both were fun, but I think the first one creeped me out a little bit more. So I'm going to give the edge to the original 80s version in this one. So I don't know who wants to go next.
It's hard with 3D if you don't see it in 3D or you don't see it in theaters or wherever it's intended to. Like even if you go back and watch some of the Final Destination movies that are done in 3D,
Yep.
And you don't watch it 3D, it's a total different, and it kind of in a way ruins parts of it.
Yeah.
So it is tough. But let's see what Ken has to say here.
Sorry, I was on mute. One thing I thought about, well, two things I thought about. One, how did you find time to watch these two movies in one day, back to back? I want your job, because I can barely find time to watch one movie. The other thing is, one day somebody's going to ask me like, "Hey, I heard you do a podcast." I'm like, "Yeah, I do a podcast." And like, "Well, what's it about?" And it's like, "Oh, it's a horror movie podcast." And then the next question is going to ask me, "Well, have you seen My Bloody Valentine, either the 81 or 2009 one?" And I'm going to say, "No, I haven't." And then they're going to say, "Well, you shouldn't be hosting a horror podcast because I'm a slacker and I didn't watch either one of them." But I did remember when this one came out because Mr. Handsome Pants there, who Muse is all gushing all over here, Jensen. Yeah, I know he was like Mr. Heartthrob, whatnot, and that's probably why I didn't want to watch it. It's like I don't know. I just didn't appeal to me. But yeah, I got to take a pass, and I'm gonna throw it on over to Chris.
Yeah, I like both. I did see both. Big fan of both, and a lot of people don't know this, and I'm still trying to find the die cast of it. When My Bloody Valentine 3D came out, for one race, there was a NASCAR driver who had that paint scheme on his hood, and I always wanted to find the die cast of that car, and I could never do it. I'm a big fan of the first one over the second one because it's one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite slasher movies, filmed in Nova Scotia in a mine. And as far as Babe goes, yeah, Cynthia Dale, the chick in the red dress. Oh, now unfortunately, she gets a pickaxe in the gut. Very unceremonious way to go. Also, the first one, I don't think I got paid for it, but product placement wise, Moosehead beer. In about 15 minutes before the movie ends, they run out of Moosehead. In the last 15 minutes is Schlitz. So no European imports, no Amstel Light and Heineken, Schlitz and Moosehead, all right? And no Pretty Boys in the first one, all right? Although I am a big fan of the viciousness of the second one, especially the scene when the jaw gets ripped off by a pickaxe and comes flying at you. But edge to number one.
Awesome. You always point out the most perfect things, like the beer. I didn't catch that. But with the hunky boy here in part two, I think it's safe to say our friend Psycho Gorman goes with the
I was gonna say hunky boy, hunky boy, hunky boy, hunky boy.
Oh man, we love that movie. We can't get enough of it. So with that, I'll continue on here with some news, and I guess the first piece of news is kind of fitting here, because on May 25th, you can actually get the entire edition of complete series of Supernatural. So Muse can grab that, and have all her hunky that she wants there. 15 seasons worth. I think it's like.
They do have a sick car, though. I'll give them that.
Yeah, awesome car.
I'm sure her husband is rolling over right now, and
he's putting his headphones on and just going to sleep.
I got you, Jamie. I got you, buddy.
He's having a bloody Valentine of his own right now, and that's like over 300 episodes. I haven't done the math exactly, but I believe it is 300 episodes. You can get it in Blu-ray or DVD, and then just go at it. Fantastic. I still need to see the last season. I'm looking forward to catching that. I wanted to see it all kind of together. That's why I kind of waited. Something else worth watching is John Jarrett, is Mick from Wolf Creek, versus Danielle Harris. Everybody wants to see that. And that is going to be coming as in the way of Skin Collector on DVD on the 15th. And I guess that's an international release. So our friends like John may get to see that before us. I'm not sure when it's coming here, but anytime Mick is on anything and plays a similar, I haven't even seen the trailer, I don't know, but I just love him because of what he does in Wolf Creek. So I give him a pass. I want to see that, and goes against Danielle Harris. I'll take that. And we're all getting old here, and so is M. Night. And if you saw the Super Bowl and you saw the commercial, and maybe you went online and caught the full trailer, they announced and showed the trailer for his next thriller. They're not saying it's really horror, but it's a thriller. But it's called Old, and I guess it looks kind of interesting. They're on an island, and then people are aging gracefully. I'll say that, I guess. But I guess that'll be next from what we expect from him, and I believe he has another title he's in the works as well. Here's one for Ken again as he continues his search to see Saint Maud. I guess it's going to be on Epix. And I guess there's some confusion here. I guess it's going to be on Epix, the channel, for a limited time, and maybe on Epix, the app. Some confusion there. I don't even know who has Epix. I didn't even know there was an Epix app. But I guess on February 12th, if you want to see it and you're dying to see this movie, there's another opportunity for you to catch this. I guess very limitedly, I guess.
I know I have Epix. I am so geeked. I actually am going to see something.
I am too.
On time. Do you have it too? I'm so geeked. I'm like, yes.
No, I can't wait. People keep posting on like Facebook that they've seen it. And I'm like, and I ask them like, how did you see it? And then they give me some weird random link. Like, I'm not gonna click on that. That looks really shady. And I don't want Chris's ex FBI agent showing up at my door because yeah, I'm good. I'll wait till and do the right thing there.
Yeah, there is a surprising amount of people that have seen it, and I guess it's because it did have a limited release. It did show at some festivals, and I guess it did show overseas in certain areas. So I guess that's where these people have picked this up, and I guess people have just got the link and watching it. But if you want to watch it, as John says, legit, it will be on Epix, and I seem to get that channel sometimes and not. I don't really understand Epix, but I'll be looking out to see if I get it. So that Chris knows, I know he's not going to go to the theaters, but at least it's getting closer. Is the new Resident Evil, the remake, the reboot, whatever you want to call it. It has a date now, September 3rd. So that I guess they're going to start in limited theaters. And then we'll work our way down the process to when Chris can actually see it, unless he wants to go see it in theaters. I don't know.
I will see that in a theater. All the Underworld and Resident Evil movies, I go to the theater for.
Awesome there. So we're finally going to get Chris to go to the theater. Awesome to hear. Um, Jamie Lee Curtis landed a role in, I guess, Eli Roth. Back to him making another movie in Borderland. I didn't get a chance to completely read everything about that movie. I guess Jamie Lee has just landed a role in that one. For those who are catching this live, a benefit to you, a reminder that Clarice, Silence of the Lambs, begins on Thursday on CBS, and that's something you'll be able to watch on regular CBS. Definitely going to check that out.
Yeah, that looks pretty good. I think I might have record it, zap it, and watch that one. It looks good. It looks like the marketing looks pretty good. Yeah, zap it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, I think, a year after. So, I think if they do it right and keep it, in the storyline, they can make it interesting. And I believe it's at 10 o'clock. So I guess they're trying to push whatever they can get on regular TV. So we'll see. I'm gonna give it a shot at least. So there's a benefit for you guys that are listening. You can catch that. It starts on Thursday. Also, something else for you guys that are listening live. There's a flash sale going on right now for In Search of Darkness Part 2. And for you those that don't remember, this is the 80s documentary that came out 2 years ago, Part 1, that is, and now they've done a Part 2. I just got to see it, and it is fabulous. If you love 80s horror, you just have to watch this because it's just gonna lighten your face up. You're gonna smile and just enjoy all the goodness and memories that you had of all these horror movies. Can talk about more of it later, but definitely catch that flash sale if you can. With that, I guess I'll just jump to some recommendations here. One is Sweet Home, which is a series on Netflix I caught, and I believe it's an Asian series based on monsters. Got some pretty cool monsters here, and basically an apartment building, and you got people turning into different monsters here and there. Pretty cool, pretty nicely done. I think it was like 9 or 10 episodes. I don't know if they're doing season 2, but I just caught season 1, and I enjoyed it. Something else on Netflix is All My Friends Are Dead. I forgot what country this is. This is subtitled, not subtitled, dubbed. So it is a little weird and maybe not all great. But does have a very like kind of 80s kind of feel by the time it gets to the ending. Has a fun end. You just kind of have to go with it and roll with some of the funny dialogue as it goes. And I can't really say anything about the movie yet, but Shook is coming on Shudder next week, and definitely an interesting movie there for you guys to check out there as well. So those are just a few recommendations in there, and that will be it.
All right, great horror movie rundown, promote horror rundown. Lots to digest there. I know you always bring up the remakes, and I feel ashamed when I hadn't seen that. And Chris just texted us a picture from the 1981 version, and I'm going to have to side with Chris. If I was to pick one to watch, I would go with the 1981 version, because that's the year I was born in, Anyway, speaking of Chris, let's get into our review of The Vigil. And after that, we'll be talking to director, writer Keith Thomas. Go ahead, Chris, with the feature of the week.
Yeah, I can't recommend this one enough. If you can see it in the theater, it will be opening in some theaters. Do so. The Vigil. Those of you who are familiar with Jewish fiction, Chaim Potok is one of the great Jewish novelists. And I watched this film and I was thinking, what if Chaim Potok did horror? And it would be this movie. Keith Thomas is the director. I have no doubt he's read a lot of Chaim Potok's books, and it shows in this movie. Very, very interesting, creepy movie. Do you guys remember in The Exorcist, Father Karras goes to visit his mom, and it's that claustrophobic apartment? The movie takes place in that apartment. Not really, but it's the same setting. And but we'll get to that in a second. I think the most interesting part of this movie is a very, very a theme that continues to be played out in the Jewish community. And we say Jewish community out of total ignorance, because within the Jewish community, your best bet is to focus on the sub-communities, because we have two here. We have the Hasidic community, and we have, I guess you could call it the contemporary community. And as the movie begins, the protagonist in this movie, played by Dave Davis, he plays Yakov, not Yakov Smirnoff, but Yakov, a familiar face. You've seen him, wonderful actor, perfect in this. And he'll be on screen maybe 99% of the movie. It's almost like a Roman Polanski movie. Remember Catherine Deneuve in Repulsion? Now, he's not as pretty as Catherine Deneuve, but he's a good actor and he does it well. And he's the focus of this movie. Focus is an understatement. And you got to understand his plight as the movie begins. As the movie begins, we're in a support group. Not for alcohol, not for gambling, not for any addiction, but these are about 5 or 6 very likable young men and women who have, let's say, left the Hasidic faith and have chosen a more contemporary lifestyle. It's not easy to leave a culture, whether it be you're Catholic, you're Mormon, whatever, Hasidic Jew, and just leave it because the risk is you lose everything as far as family, friends, stature. And this is what this group is going through. And they realize they've got to be close because there's not a whole lot of friends out there when you first leave. And they are. They really sincerely care about each other. They're still uncertain. And all of them have a story, as you'll find out later. Yaakov's story is ancient, unfortunately for him, and we'll talk about that in a second. Yakov, hard times. Can't find a job, goes on interviews, no bites. The rent is due. He doesn't have a chance to pay for it. And the Hasidic community has not given up on him yet. They realize he's going through something, and they realize that he's not lost yet. He's going through something. And they're hopeful. And he's met outside the support group late at night by a Hasidic Jew who the contemporary group does not like. There's obviously been personal contact between them that hasn't gone well in the past. Got an offer for him. Knows he needs money. Knows the rent is due. For $200, can you be a shorem? What's a shorem? I think I'm pronouncing it right. It might be sholem, shorem. And when you die, somebody sits with the body. That just sits with it. On occasion, we'll read some prayers. This is not unique to the Hasidic Jewish community. When I used to work in the FBI before I retired, if there was a death in the FBI, there just were 2 last week. Very tragic. The body is never left alone. Agents will be assigned to the hospital and the morgue to stay with the body until the funeral. This is not unique, but what is unique is the shorem is charged with saying prayers, and he's there to keep evil spirits from entering the body. What's the likelihood of that happening? Well, in a horror movie, it's very likely, and that's what's going to happen. He shows up, he needs the money, he's there, but he thinks he's left the Hasidic Jewish faith. And when he walks in to be a shorem, he just says to himself, and you can tell, okay, I'm just going to sit with the body. I'm going to do what I have to do. I earn my $200. And then we find out that maybe he hasn't left it completely. This is kind of the story that you're waiting for at the end. And you don't want to miss that part. And so guess what? He meets Mrs. Litvak, the widow of Mr. Litvak. And Mr. Litvak's in the middle of the room on a table underneath a sheet. Very disconcerting. I mean, if you were in that room, you'd find every reason to look over it that way and do anything you can not to look, because you know what's going to happen. As soon as everyone leaves the room, you can see a little nudge underneath the sheet. And if the Hasidic Jews have a sense of humor, that would absolutely happen. But I don't know if they do or not. I don't know. They got some stories, hey, you should see he was a shorem once and we hid under the sheet and boom, you should have seen him play. No, this is more serious than that. And so he goes, he says, hey, listen, I got this. I'll do what I need to do. He says, hey, listen, Mrs. Litvak's going to sleep. She's got dementia. You'll never see her. And of course, she comes right down. And she's got a spooky warning for him. Yeah, gonna die. She's like that creepy gas station attendant in all those slasher movies. You guys are all gonna die. Go back. And he's right. Well, Mrs. Litvak knows of what she speaks because she knew her husband very well. And the backstory of the husband, and you see it interspersed in the plot, goes way back to the 40s, to when the Holocaust was spreading through Europe. It is a horrific, tragic, sad, infuriating scene of the Nazi soldier executing a Jew. And you realize this is Mr. Litvak. Memory. He's remembering this. And this is something that tormented him the rest of his life. And come to find out, Yakov, he has a similar incident. Now, in the contemporary community, and you get this from the beginning of the movie, Yakov has experienced some sort of PTSD. It's a horrible, horrible incident he was involved in that scarred him and will scar him for the rest of his life. To the contemporary mindset, it was an incident, it's PTSD, we got to treat that. To the Hasidic community, this is an age-old evil that dates back thousands of years, even before the Holocaust, and it's visited you. And so you've got that dichotomy there. And it sort of gives you a feel for why these two communities, both claim to be Jewish, aren't really reconcilable. And it's an uncomfortable dichotomy because both are nice people. We like the support group at the beginning. We like what the Hasidics have to offer too. And we'll talk more about this when we talk to Keith Thomas in just a minute or two. But anyway, guess what? In a creepy, claustrophobic setting with that body in the middle of the table, things start to happen. Voices, visions. Mrs. Litvak comes down, and she's creepy. She looks more like the corpse than the corpse does. And you're not fearing the body, you're fearing her. She's got this crazy, wild look. And there's a reason for it. And she knows things about Yakov that maybe it's just intuition, but Yakov has better get it down straight of what's going on because there is something evil coming. And the answer to what that is revealed to us. And then a final battle is going to have to take place. But whatever happens on the screen with special effects, creature effects, gore effects, it'll all be there. Remember, there's a battle already taking place in Yakov between his roots and where he wants to go. And as soon as he can figure out that this is not a battle that began with a tragic incident a year before, but it's a battle that perhaps began in ancient times, and he's just the latest soldier in it. It's scary. It's unnerving. Like I said, the setting in the apartment, that'll get you. But see the Vigil. And Keith Thomas, we're going to talk to in just a second.
Great review, Chris, as always. I think you hit on a lot of different points there, and we'll get into it with us. I just want to hear what you guys think about it, but let's get into our interview. We'll be right back, everybody. Sit tight.